Hello again. Today we're going to examine the underside of a typical fire apparatus. I'm going to be pointing out a lot of components that should be looked at on a regular basis by the driver engineer of the vehicle. Some of these are key components for the safe operation of the vehicle. They must be looked at, like I said, periodically, but especially on a weekly and a monthly basis to ensure that the vehicle is safe to drive. As we work our way through the truck, you'll hear a lot of different descriptions of different components, and I will be repeating myself at times. If I do repeat it, then of course it's of paramount importance that you take a look at it. So the first thing we're going to start with is the front of the truck, and we'll work our way to the back of the truck, having a look at, like I said, a representative example of the safety of operation elements that go for a fire apparatus as well as a rescue truck. In the front of the truck you can see the main radiator, and above that an auxiliary cooler. This area should be inspected for any foreign objects or debris that will prevent the airflow across the radiator fins. And you need to look all the way up inside to make sure it's fully clear. Okay. In this area right here, there is a skid pan that protects the suspension and the engine parts. There should be no damage to any of these components here that may have happened by striking a curb or any other objects on the road. The next part of the truck we're going to inspect are the basic steering components. And if you look right in this area, you'll see a long cylindrical tube. This tube is attached to the steering column that goes up into the cab. Okay, it's important that you look at this joint here to make sure that it's intact and that nothing is damaged. Follow the tube back, or the steering tube, to another U-joint. At this point, it goes into the power steering box, and this is where the power steering hydraulic pressure is applied to help you steer the apparatus. There should be no obvious leaks or any damage to this area. The next thing we want to look at is this arm right here. This is called the Pitman Arm. If you look right here, you'll see what we call a castellated nut and a cotter pin. This is a critical joint that must be inspected to ensure that, number one, the nut is in place and the safety pin or the cotter pin is also in place. So we inspect the Pitman Arm, and then we're going to inspect what they call the drag link that connects the Pitman Arm to the steering arm. There's also another joint here with a castellated nut and a cotter pin. And then there is a lower steering arm, and you can see a large example of a castellated nut and a cotter pin. As the steering wheel is moved, the Pitman Arm moves forward and backward and turns the circular motion of the steering wheel into a linear motion, forward and back. That moves the drag link either forward or back, which in turn acts on the steering arm that turns the wheel either to the right or to the left. There's an upper steering arm in this area right here. This is known as the kingpin area. And then there's a lower steering arm that is connected to this long cylindrical tube that goes all the way across to the other side of the truck. This is called the tie rod. This ties the left front wheel to the right front wheel. At the end of the rod is what we call the tie rod end. This should not be damaged. The rubber boot that protects the joint should be in place. As you can see on this example, these have just been replaced. These are relatively new. On the back side, once again, you can see another example of the castellated nut with the cotter pin. Remember, these need to be looked at, and you need to ensure as a driver engineer that these component parts are in place and not damaged. As we follow it across to the other side, we see the other tie rod end connected to the other lower steering arm that's attached to the wheel itself. All right, the next thing we're going to talk about are the suspension components. And we're starting in the front of the truck. And if you look right here where I'm pointing, you'll see what we call the spring hangers. And the bolts in this area attach the spring hanger to the frame rail of the truck, which is a large metal frame that goes from the front of the truck all the way straight through to the back of the truck. And as we work our way to the back of the truck, we're going to be inspecting the frame rails for any cracks or damage. But back to the spring hanger. The spring hanger, of course, does what it says. It hangs the spring stack, which is right here, okay, to the frame rail. These large U-bolts hold the spring stack to the front axle that goes all the way across that connects the two wheels. It's important that you look and make sure that these bolts are in place, that the nuts are in place, and there's no damage in this area. There should also be no damage to the spring stack, okay? This is very heavy duty, these are very heavy duty components, and if it's damaged, you will know it. It will be very obvious. Now this spring is easily seen either from the side of the truck or on a creeper during your weekly inspection. Some of it you can see on your daily inspection. Okay, in this area you'll see the back part of the spring and another U-bolt that holds the back side of the spring to the front axle. The spring goes back here, and there's another spring hanger with bolts in the back that are easily visible from the side of the truck that you can ensure are in place, and therefore the spring is in good condition and good working order.